$2. That is the exact price of the preparation that can effectively double the lifespan of your vehicle's heart. $2 gets you a total restoration of internal compression and a permanent end to the planned senescence of your engine. Not just a smoother idle, not just a slight bump in MPG. We are talking about the actual restoration of factory-spec performance in engines that the experts say are ready for the scrap heap. This single fermented-style liquid traces its lineage back to the very dawn of the industrial age, used by the master engineers of the early 20th century to keep massive maritime engines running for decades without a single teardown. But the $600 billion automotive repair industry has spent the last 80 years making sure you never see this preparation on a recommended maintenance schedule. They've buried this ancient preparation under mountains of sensor-safe marketing and high-priced diagnostic fees. They don't want you to fix it for $2. They want you to replace it for $5,000. And once you see the mechanism they've used to hide this from you, you'll never look at a mechanic's shop the same way again. The automotive repair industry isn't just a service. It is a $600 billion global engine of profit that relies entirely on one thing: the gradual decay of your vehicle. Every time a modern service technician tells you that your loss of compression is just age, or that your rough idle requires a more than $200 fuel injector replacement, they are bankrolled by your ignorance. Think about the math. If a simple $2 compound could dissolve the carbon glass that chokes modern valves, the entire revenue model for top-tier dealership service centers would collapse overnight. We aren't talking about a conspiracy theory, we are talking about economic rationalism. The major manufacturers, the titans of the $1.2 trillion automotive sector, have a vested interest in your engine reaching a terminal state by 150,000 miles. They call it life of the vehicle fluid or maintenance-free components. In reality, it is a calculated silence. They've spent decades lobbying to ensure that the primary engine responsible for internal cleansing remains absent from every owner's manual in America. Every time someone discovers how this ancient preparation restores the molecular seal of a piston ring, that is a $5,000 down payment on a new car that the industry loses forever. They haven't just hidden the solution, they've rebranded the problem as inevitable. But as you're about to see, the civilizations that built the first great machines knew better, and they recorded exactly how to stop the rot before it starts. The mystery of this liquid isn't just a modern automotive secret, it is the culmination of a 1,000-year-old understanding of how hydrocarbons and viscous fluids interact with heat. Long before the first internal combustion engine sputtered to life in a German workshop, the world's most advanced civilizations were obsessed with one specific problem: carbonization. Fire always leaves a ghost behind, a hard black residue that eventually chokes the life out of any mechanism. In the shadow of the pyramids, the physicians and engineers of Pharaoh Ramesses II were perhaps the first to document the use of earth oils to preserve the integrity of high-friction surfaces. Egyptian papyri detail a specific fermented liquid derived from bitumen and plant resins used to treat the axles of royal war chariots. These weren't just lubricants, they were solvents. By applying this spirit of the earth, Egyptian engineers ensured that the heat generated during high-speed desert pursuits didn't fossilize the grease into a solid mass. As the Roman Empire expanded, its logistical backbone relied on massive mechanical grain mills and complex catapult systems known as onagers. Roman military records from the era of Julius Caesar describe a cleansing vinegar of the earth. They discovered that a specific molecular agitation could keep a moving part in a state of perpetual newness. This wasn't food-grade vinegar, but a distilled petroleum byproduct found seeping from the ground in the Caspian provinces. The legions carried small amphorae of this pungent, clear fluid. They didn't use it to grease the gears, they used it to strip away the varnish left behind by animal fat lubricants. Without this ritualistic cleaning, a Roman ballista would lose its spring and its compression within weeks. They called it the breath of the machine. By the time the Ottoman Empire was refining its imperial kitchens and massive bronze cannons, the science had evolved. Records from the Topkapi Palace suggest that master founders used a twice-distilled wood spirit to clean the bores of their great cannons. They realized that the black powder left a crust that made the next shot less accurate and more dangerous. This forgotten extract was the only thing capable of dissolving the carbon without pitting the metal. It was a trade secret so closely guarded that the cleaners were often kept in a separate wing of the palace, away from the general military. What we see here is a startling pattern. Independent discovery across 4 unconnected civilizations separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years proves this is not folklore. It's empirical science discovered over and over again. From the Nile to the Tiber, and from the workshops of Istanbul to the early steam engine sheds of the 1800s, the masters of the Great Heat all arrived at the same conclusion. You cannot simply add more oil to a hot system. You must periodically introduce a volatile solvent to unlock the carbon chains and return the metal to its virgin state. The Industrial Revolution didn't invent this liquid, it simply inherited it. But somewhere between the 1920s and the 1970s, the conversation changed. We went from cleaning the engine to replacing the part. The ancient records were moved from the engineering floor to the dusty basements of history, all to make way for the $400 billion additive industry that sells you 1% of the solution at 1,000% of the price. But the chemistry didn't change just because the marketing did. The molecular bond between this compound and carbon is as old as the Earth itself, and the modern science, though suppressed, proves the ancients were right all along. The automotive aftermarket industry generates over $600 billion per year in the United States alone. To put that in perspective, that is more than the GDP of most modern nations. Companies like AutoZone, O'Reilly, and the service arms of giants like Ford and Toyota don't just sell parts, they sell the necessity of parts. But here's the jagged pill they don't want you to swallow. A massive percentage of failed parts are actually just dirty parts. A fuel injector doesn't break because the metal fails. It fails because a microscopic crust of carbon, thinner than a human hair, has disrupted the spray pattern. A variable valve timing VVT solenoid doesn't die. It gets gummed up by oil varnish. Yet, if you walk into a dealership, they will tell you to replace the part. They will quote you $400 for a teardown and replacement. This is the suppression of the simple. The mechanism of this suppression is brilliant in its simplicity. It's called medicalization of the machine. Just as pharmaceutical companies rebranded common nutritional deficiencies as diseases requiring lifelong prescriptions, the auto industry rebranded carbon buildup as mechanical failure. They've used 3 specific tactics to bury this knowledge. The manual omission. Look at your owner's manual. You will see inspect or replace for almost every component, but you will almost never see cleanse. By removing the ritual of internal cleansing from the official guidelines, they've made it unofficial and risky in the eyes of the average consumer. Regulatory capture. They've lobbied for emission standards that actually make engines run hotter and recirculate more soot. They then conveniently forget to tell you that these systems require a volatile compound to stay clear. The branded alternative. When they do acknowledge a cleaning need, they sell you a top-tier branded fuel or a $150 professional induction service. This service uses the exact same naphtha and pale oil base we've been discussing, but they've rebranded it, marked it up 5,000%, and told you only a certified technician can handle it. The average American spends $1,200 per year on unscheduled repairs. A staggering amount of that money goes directly to corporations for components that could have been saved by a liquid that costs less than a cup of coffee. If you've made it this far, you know more than 99% of people ever will about why your car ages. Now it's time to stop the cycle. You've waited long enough. The thing Cleopatra's engineers understood in principle, that Roman legions carried in flasks, and that the master mechanics of the 1930s swore by, it's seafoam motor treatment. Specifically, it is the precise, stabilized blend of pale oil, naphtha, and isopropyl alcohol. It's been sitting on the bottom shelf for nearly 100 years. This isn't just a cleaner. It is a 100% petroleum-based liquid that acts as a molecular solvent. It reliquefies the glass carbon we talked about. It is clear, thin, and possesses a creeping ability that allows it to defy gravity, pulling itself into the tightest tolerances of your piston rings. While a full can costs about $8 to $10, a single maintenance dose to keep an engine in factory-spec condition costs roughly $2 per treatment. The $2 protocol, step by step. The fuel system purge. Add 1 ounce of seafoam per gallon of fuel. This cleans the fuel injectors and the varnish off the intake valves. The crankcase reset. 200 miles before your next oil change, pour 1 ounce of seafoam per quart of oil directly into your oil filler neck. As you drive, the naphtha dissolves the sludge and lazy carbon around your piston rings. When you drain the oil, the heart disease of your engine flows out into the pan. The upper intake, fog. For advanced users, introducing the aerosol version, seafoam spray directly into the air intake will dissolve the carbon on the tops of the pistons. You will see a thick cloud of white smoke. That isn't the liquid burning. That is the carbon deposits being vaporized and exiting your tailpipe. Now, does this work for everyone? No. If your engine has a thrown rod, a snapped timing belt, or a literal hole in the piston, no liquid in the world is going to heal broken metal. Seafoam is a cleaning and preservation tool, not a magic wand for physical breakage. If you have a high-mileage vehicle with a very fragile oil system, talk to a trusted specialist before a crankcase treatment. I've seen a 1998 Honda with 300,000 miles go from a shaking, rough idle to a purr just by cleaning the injectors with this $2 dose. It's about returning the machine to its natural state, the state the manufacturers want you to believe is impossible to maintain. Pharaoh Ramesses' physicians knew it. Caesar's legionnaires knew it. The master mechanics of the 1940s knew it. Somewhere along the way, we were told to forget it. We were told that the gradual choking of an engine was just the cost of driving, a slow march toward a $40,000 trade-in. The $600 billion repair revenue depends entirely on you believing that your engine is a black box that only a dealership can touch. If you've watched this far, You are part of the less than 1% who understands that maintenance is a form of rebellion. If this video disappears, the only way this knowledge survives is if you send it to someone. Screenshot the ratios, write down the ingredients, don't let the science be buried again. Next time, I'm going to show you what the tire industry has been hiding, something that's been sitting in plain sight on your sidewall for 50 years. It's been hiding in the code, and once you see it, you'll never trust a tire shop again.